Our last sentence type would be compound complex. For this one, we're going to have two independent clauses, and independent clauses have subjects and verbs. Combine that with one or more dependent clauses. Now, just for the sake of making this a little bit easier, we're only going to really focus on formulas that deal with just one dependent clause, but you can add more. You start off with a subordinating conjunction, and you combine that with the subject and verb. Since I found the dollar. If I find a dollar. And so on. Our first sentence type that we're going to look at is going to be D, I, Ci. Even though that's a lot of letters, and even though that might seem confusing right at the beginning, just place your finger over the D for a minute. And then you see a formula that we've used before. We have I, Ci. And that's just a compound sentence. And we've already worked through that. Or you could cover up the Ci, and then you just have a D, I, which is a complex sentence. And we've had that before. So really, it's just the D that's floating around in this case. So the D will be moving on into different positions in that sentence. Our first sentence is, although Henry won the tournament, he wanted to continue to improve, so he scheduled some time for that. All right, we're going to break this sentence apart bit by bit. The first thing that we're going to look is the first sentence part that we have, the first clause, and that's a dependent clause. We start off with the word although, subordinating conjunction, and then we had a subject and verb after that, although Henry won. Then we have a comma, because when we begin sentences with a dependent clause, we have a comma after that. So now we're going to look for the next independent clause. So we have a he wanted. We have a subject and verb there. Okay, then you'll notice that we have a comma and a conjunction, so, and then we have another subject verb after that, he scheduled. The next sentence type, we have ID, Ci. So in this case, the D has floated once again. And here, it's no one found the treasure because the pirates hid it very well, yet many people still risk their lives in order to get it. Alright, so the first clause that we have coming up is an independent clause. So we have no one found. Then we have our dependent clause. Starts off with because, subordinating conjunction, then pirates hid. And then lastly, we have comma conjunction, then the sentence ends with an independent clause. The next type, we have I, C, D, I. So in this one, the dependent clause is floating again, and remember when we begin with the dependent clause, we're going to have a comma after that. So that's the reason why there are two commas in this one. For our sentence, we have Brandy finished her volcano project, yet since her partner didn't finish the report, she was still worried about her grade. The first clause that we have is an independent clause. So we have subject verb, Brandy finished. Then we have a comma and a conjunction. And then we have a dependent clause. We have the word since, which is a subordinating conjunction, followed by partner did finish, because not isn't a verb, it's an adverb. So we have since partner did finish. Alright, so that's our dependent clause, so we have a comma after that, and then we have an independent clause with a subject and verb. So we have she was. And then that's our formula for that one. The next formula is I, Cid. In this one, we're starting off with an independent clause, so we have children yelled. Then we have a comma and a conjunction. Our next clause, independent clause, mom pulled. Then we end that with a dependent clause, as she stared. Next type, we have a D, I, semicolon I. So in this one, we start off with a dependent clause, and when we start off with the dependent clause, we have a comma after that. So we have even if villain takes. Then we have the comma, then the independent clause, he would be. Then we have a semicolon, and then we have Avengers would come as the verb. Next formula, we have ID, semicolon I. We start off with an independent clause, I smashed, then dependent clause, before it could kill me, semicolon, and then we end with babies swore. The next formula is I semicolon D comma I. In this one we start off with an independent clause, so we have the subject and verb, iPhone, helps, then we have a semicolon, then we have our dependent clause, we have when, it is, and then because we're starting off with a dependent clause here, we're going to have a comma after it. Then we have our independent clause, I start, subject verb.